Have you ever heard the story of the garbage truck? No? Well, let me tell it to you. It's about a woman who jumped into a cab to go to the airport, and as they were driving along, a black car pulled out of a parking space and almost clobbered them. Her taxi driver missed it by the paint width of the car, and he had to swerve and carry on to miss this man, who then jumped out of his black car and started yelling at the taxi driver and shaking his fist. And the taxi driver smiled, waved to him and went serenely on, calling back, "Have a nice day." And the woman in the cab said, why did you do that? Why didn't you stop and berate him? He nearly cost you your cab, and nearly cost us our lives or trip to hospital. And the taxi driver replied, "Well, it's all about the principle of the garbage truck. Some people go around with a lot of garbage in them. They're full of anger, resentment, hurt, pain, leftover stuff of all kinds, and from time to time they have to dump it somewhere. And if you're in the way, they'll dump it on you." I try not to take that personally. I try, said the taxi driver, to move on, because life is too short and life is too precious to waste it on reacting to things like that. There's absolutely no point. Move on and leave them to it, and hope that they can clear their garbage without hurting anybody. It's a wonderful story, and it's a wonderful message, isn't it? Because, you see, that's what we're talking about. Life is precious, and it is too precious to waste on saved up resentments and things. But mind you, that's all very well to say. It's much harder to do. And as I tell the story, I'm much in admiration of the taxi driver. I suppose the best way to bring this into focus again is to tell you about the lovely story, the Desiderata, that was written by a nun in the 17th or something century. You will have heard it, but it bears listening to again, because she said, "Go placidly amid the noise and haste of this life." She says, avoid loud or aggressive persons. They are a vexation to the spirit. Isn't that lovely? A vexation to the spirit. And she talks about, do not distress yourselves with stupid imaginings. More fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Wonderful messages there. The Desiderata is one of my favourite pieces of writing. Written as it was 500, 600 years ago, it's even more relevant today. So if we're talking about life being really precious, we're talking about the responsibility that each of us has to respect and honour the integrity and personhood of the other. We're talking about love for our fellow human beings, but that's a difficult word, isn't it? However, I had a beautiful experience of it in the last 2 weeks. Here in the village where I am, there's a couple across the corridor from me, and they're in their 70s, not old, but the elderly gentleman died fairly suddenly, really, and his wife is absolutely shattered at his loss. And as I sat with her, she told me about how they had worked together in Hannah's shoe factory here in New Zealand about 50 years ago, I think she said. And her husband was making the heels to go on the shoes, and she made the buckles. And they fell in love, and they've been together ever since. They've hardly ever left each other's side. And I was deeply moved by that outpouring of her love for him. So as I was saying, it's more incumbent on us, each of us, I think, not so much the love, but the respect that we need to distribute around our world. To be able to respect each person we meet, try to find that gem within them that is worthy of respect, even if I don't really like them. There has been a loss of life here in New Zealand of young people in the last few weeks. Two or three have died suddenly from meningococcal disease, and others have taken their own lives. And grieving families are talking more and more about how life is precious, and it's too precious to be victimised, abused, or wasted in any way. So let's use this month, the spring month of September, a lovely month. Let's use it to recommit ourselves to being more aware of the dignity of others than of their handicaps or difficulties. I myself struggle with that, so I have to be the leader in it too. So I leave you with that thought, and perhaps a final word from the Desiderata. With all its sham, drudgery and broken dreams, it's still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. Thank you for being with me. Go well, go with your God.